Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Ford Ranger, we're going to be showing you how to install the Blue Ox tow bar wiring kit. But before we get into that, why don't we take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of refresh ourselves on the main parts that we're going to need to flat tow our Ranger down the road in the first place. And first part will be the base plate. That'll provide us with a solid and reliable attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. Tow bar will be the second component, and that's going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of our Ranger to the back of the motorhome. Third main part will be safety cables, and those are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep your truck and your coach connected. The fourth main part will be tow bar wiring. What that's going to do is transfer the lighting signals from the back of your RV to the back of your Ford, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth major component will be a supplemental braking system. What that's going to do is apply the brakes in your Ranger whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more safe and predictable stop. There are two more smaller components that I definitely recommend using with the Ford Ranger. One of them is what's called a brake light relay, and what that's going to do is prevent the motorhome's brake signal from overriding the Ranger's turn signal. So let's say, without a brake light relay, if you choose not to use one, what would happen is if you're at a stop sign, say making a left turn, so you got on your brakes and on your left turn signal, the motorhome's left turn will be going and the brakes will be on. But back here, you'll just have brake lights. That brake light signal will override the turn signal. So, it can be confusing for other people behind you. And the right way to do it is use that relay. The other thing I suggest is a towed vehicle charge line kit. What that'll do is essentially maintain or trickle charge your Ranger's battery whenever you're flat towing it. That way you'll have a full charge when you're ready to disconnect, and the supplemental braking system will have the constant voltage it needs to operate efficiently. One of the awesome things about this kit is once it's installed, it's going to be super easy to set up. Essentially, you're just going to have to plug in to the front of your Ranger and into the back of your motorhome, which unfortunately today we don't have a motorhome. So this is kind of simulating it. This is just a test box that'll send out signals. But when this is all hooked up, let's say if you hit your left turn on the motorhome, it would bring it to the back of the Ranger. Right turn, brakes, tails, all that type of thing. I want to mention this particular kit is not going to come included with a cable or a 6-way round style connector. So if you need one, you'll have to pick it up separately. I'm using the Blue Ox setup here. It comes with the cable and the connector. Really nice matchup with what we got going on. But keep in mind too, if you get a new tow bar, some of the more premier ones will actually come with a cable and a connector. So just something to think about whenever you're putting all your parts together. At the back, here's an example how it works. We turn the left turn signal on our test box and sending that signal back here. So same deal if you had your motorhome hooked up. Compared to some of the other wiring kits available, let's say the Roadmaster diode wiring kit, for example, those are excellent kits as well. Done a ton of them, never really ran into any issues. But regardless, I think a diode setup is going to be your best bet because it looks completely factory once it's installed, super easy to hook up, so you really can't go wrong. With this particular truck, I kind of like this Blue Ox kit actually because the diodes are a little bit smaller, makes them a little bit easier to work with and mount up, but more importantly, they give you quite a bit of extra wiring. And on a truck like this, it never fails. It seems like you always have to extend the wires or something along them lines. So having a little bit more material to work with is definitely a bonus because, like I said, more than likely you're going to use it and whatnot. And there's other types of tow bar wiring you can use too. Let's say magnetic lighting, for example. I feel like there's a time and place for it if you flat tow very occasionally, but the majority of the time it's kind of a pain. They're magnets, so they'll stick to your vehicle, which honestly I think these Fords might be aluminum anyway, so that wouldn't work if that's the case. but then you have to run wires all the way up to the front, you know, and then take them off when you're disconnected, and store a big old thing of lights and wiring. So diodes just really simplify it, streamline the hooking up and disconnecting process, and they're really reliable too. We rarely run into issues with them, so really can't go wrong. As far as the installation goes, it's not too bad. You know, the truck's pretty open. The most time-consuming part is just routing wiring right from the front to the back, but as long as you stay focused, shouldn't run into too many issues. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Ranger, and what we need to do is hook up our 6-way round connector plug. So what I've done, I just took one end of the bundle of wire, kind of put it here towards the front. You're going to take the dust cover, slide that over the wiring, and then we can start to separate these. To separate these, what you can do, take a pair of snips, just kind of carefully cut in between the wires, and then pull them back a few inches. Then what I like to do is just kind of cut maybe a 1/4 inch off or so at the end, just in case if we nicked it while we were separating them. But then you're just going to strip back the insulation on each wire and give it a good twist. I'll do that same thing for our 3 remaining ends there. If you look at the back of your connector plug, it's going to be labeled. So TM is tail light, so the brown wire will go to it. This one is GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. This one's LT for left turn, so the yellow wire goes there. And this one's RT for right turn, so the green wire will go into it. And what you want to do is back out that set screw almost all the way. And then you can take the appropriate color wire, place that into the terminal, and then tighten down the set screw. So I'll do the same thing for the rest of our wires. This is what the connector plugs are going to look like once you have all the wires hooked up. And with that done, we can put our dust cover on. What I usually do too is take some silicone and cover up these terminals really good, just to help keep it sealed and protected against corrosion. But I wait till the very end to do that. You know, verify our wiring's working and everything's correct. That way, if something's wrong and we have to come back in here, we don't have a big mess to deal with. So just temporarily put our boot on there and get this held in place for now. We can start to route our bundle of wiring now. So you'll take the end, and we're going to go up into the engine compartment. So I just shot it over through here, and at that point it's going to start to go up and come out kind of behind our headlight. In the engine compartment behind our driver's side headlight, this is where our wiring is going to come up, and it turns out right here there's a factory ground. And I think we're going to utilize that to actually ground out our diode wiring. So why don't we go ahead and get the white wire prepped and ready to get hooked up here. What you're going to do is carefully cut just the white wire in half. And be really careful doing this. You don't want to nick the other wires. And we'll kind of start to peel these apart here. And the side of the white wire that's running down to our 6-way, that's the one that we're going to work with. So you're going to strip that insulation back, twist the wire, then you can take a ring terminal, put that over the bare end, and crimp it down, and this is going to get hooked up to that ground screw that we showed you. But before we do that, the remaining portion of the white wire that goes to nothing, we're going to peel that off and completely remove it from the rest of our bundle. I got our white wire grounded now, so all you'll have to do is take that bolt out using an 8mm socket, put the bolt through the ring terminal, and simply just tighten it back down. I continue to route our wiring towards the back of the truck, so it comes along through here. If you're installing a braking system that requires you to tie into the diodes, for example, the stay and play Duo is one of them, give yourself a little bit of wire to work with so you can tie it in easier. But with that said, our wire is going to run and drop right down through there to the underside of our truck. And when you're doing this, you know, be sure to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Underneath the truck now, this is where our wiring is going to drop down. And I just use some zip ties to keep it all secured, but it's going to run straight towards the back of our truck, just along through there. Just follow these factory lines. It's usually a pretty safe bet. And then it's going to kind of disappear for a second, but I'm going to run it along the side of our frame and our fuel tank, and it's going to run all the way through that opening until it comes out back here. Here's where it's going to come out from the side of our fuel tank and continue to run back. The wire continues to run up and over our suspension components, where it's going to drop down right here. And at this point, we can get some more wires connected and kind of start to prep everything to get them hooked up to our taillights. So I separated our wires into 3 individual strands, and we're going to take the brown one here and cut that, and then we're going to strip the insulation back on that end as well as this end. And then in the kit, you're going to receive another length of brown wire, which you can take that and strip the end back, and then twist the ends together. And then we're going to take a butt connector. I've decided to upgrade to these heat shrink styles. The ones that come in the kit will work fine, but the heat shrink does offer a little more corrosion protection, so you can always upgrade if you want. But if you use the regular ones, make sure you tape them up real good once your connections are made. But that's going to slide over. You'll crimp that down. And then I'm just going to double that wire over since I have a yellow butt connector here. That'll go back into that side. Get crimped down. And the reason that we're doing this, one brown wire is going to be the taillight signal for the driver's side, the other one will run over to the passenger side. So that's why we're doing this here. And I was just kind of eyeballing the green wire, because this green wire will have to go to the passenger side. It looks like it might fall a little short. So what I'm going to do is not cut it right there. I'm going to take the end of it, strip it back, and they give you a piece of green wire as well. I'm just going to use a butt connector to extend it. That way we don't run into any issues, you know, as far as the length goes and falling short there. So again, the ones that come in the kit will work fine. But once I get this crimped down, with these being heat shrinks, I'll take my heat gun and seal up the ends. Got our wires finished routing them, so the yellow and brown, that'll stay over here on the driver's side, and then where we added that brown wire and the green wire, that's going to run right along through here over towards the passenger side. It's going to continue along the back of our bumper all the way through here, where we have it drop down right here. And now what we can do is go up top and get our taillights removed. If you drop your tailgate, that'll give you access to the fasteners holding in our taillight. So you're gonna have two 8mm head screws. One at the bottom, one at the top. And you should be able to pop the light out. And in our case, we have incandescent bulbs. Yours might have LEDs and have one big connector plug, but regardless, we need to kind of get the taillights separated from the harness. So there's these snaps in here. You can take a trim tool or a flathead and kind of break them free there. And then the bulbs are going to be quarter turns, so rotate them quarter of the way there until they pop out. You can do the same thing to get the passenger side light removed. We're going to test our wires now to figure out what does what. So I turned on our tail lights, and this is a bulb that lit up. So this is the one we're going to be using. I got a test light here, and we can just carefully probe to check for the function. So if you get power on our test light, we know that's the tail light circuit. So we're getting power. We know our blue wire is the tail light circuit. I'll go ahead and check for our brake light circuit and show you which one that is. I checked for our brake light signal, and that's going to be our yellow wire. So we'll use the yellow for stop and turn and the blue for tail light. Now if we follow our harness down, there comes a point where there's some wire loom, and if you open up that wire loom, that'll expose all the wires. I think we're going to put our diodes in here. It's just a lot more room to work and everything else. So we can take our yellow wire and the blue one. We're going to cut them in half, and then we're going to strip back all four ends of the insulation. With those ends stripped back on our factory wires, you can crimp on the spade terminals. These just slide on and crimp them down. So you're going to put that on all four ends. Yours might be a different color. They might be red in color. If they are, not a big deal. They work the same exact way. So with that said, we got all four of these ends on. You can take two of the diodes, and I just taped them together, make it a little easier to work with. But you'll have a side that has the single terminals on it. You're going to plug the spade terminals on that on the end that's closest to where our taillight bulbs are. So that'll just slide onto the terminal there. Like that. And then the side that has doubles, you want to go color for color. So the yellow one will plug into that end. It don't matter which terminal either you put it on. And then the blue will go to the blue. And then what we're able to do, you can reach down and grab the wiring that we ran back here, pull it up into the pocket and get them connected. So reach down and pulled up our new wiring that we ran, stripped those ends back and crimped on the spade terminals. With the new yellow wire controlling our stop and turn circuit, that's going to get plugged into the diode with the factory yellow wire. So pretty easy there, color for color. And then since the factory blue is our taillight signal, we're going to plug in our new brown wire. Over here on the passenger side, we got this all set up essentially the same exact way that we did the other side. Even the factory colors are going to control the same thing. So factory blue will be your taillight signal. So you'll plug the new brown wire into that diode. And the factory yellow wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn. And so you're going to plug the new green wire into that diode. At this point, you can take your taillights, put the bulbs back in the opposite way that you removed them, and then just simply get the taillights reinstalled. It is a good idea to test the wiring to make sure that it's working properly. So at the front, I'm just plugged into a test box. Probably don't have this at home, so you can always use your motorhome, but keep in mind, if your motorhome has any issues, it could mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. But with that said, we'll try our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brakes. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Blue Ox tow bar wiring kit on our 2020 Ford Ranger.